at marriagemakes3.com. Good morning, good morning if you're joining us on the HAPS TV, also Facebook Live, YouTube, and IG, Twitter. Thank you all for joining us this morning. I'm Pastor Greg Mostella at marriagemakes3.com. We help couples achieve relationship success so that they can avoid divorce and many of the difficulties that people associate with relationships. We help those who are single date right so that they can mate right. I'm here kind of early today. This is I won't say out of character, but unusual for me to be here in the morning. I felt just really inspired this morning to just come on and to talk to you a little bit. Those of you who know me know that my wife and I, Pastor Michelle, are pastors. We are authors of several books. We're both Air Force veteran, of course, parents and grandparents, and we are your go-to couple for all things relationship. Our home base is in Starkville, Mississippi, and of course we minister to people and deal with people from all over the world. Thank God to this global platform that we have. We are new in HAPS, and so if you have not been able to find us yet, come on over to HAPS TV and join us here. We are at bit.ly/MM3 links, bit.ly/MM3 links. We broadcast Tuesday through Thursday between the hours of 9 and 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We appreciate those who have followed us for a long time. And we had asked that if you come in, go ahead and share this stream. I'm just going to be in for a little while. I felt inspired this morning as I woke up to just come on and talk a little bit about forgiveness. Yesterday, I think I wanted to say in America, but not just America, but the entire world. I believe that people all over the world breathe a great sigh of relief. People all over the world breathe a great sigh of relief. Now, is that unusual? Is that something different? You all know that this past year has really been tough for several reasons. The George Floyd situation, other racially based, or if not racially motivated, people profile who all over the country who have been, unfortunately, their lives kind of snuffed out. So it's been a really tedious time in addition to Corona. In fact, I think the coronavirus probably took a little heat. It took our minds off of the George Floyd killing, and maybe not so much consciously, but maybe unconsciously gave us a time to think about something else for a moment, or to hear about something else. So we've been inundated with all of this news, and my God, it's been tough time. So we've been praying, faithful to pray for America, and pray for all of the things that we're facing. Thank you for joining us. If you're just coming in, I appreciate you sharing. I'm not going to be here long, but I would love for you to join me. Come on in and share this, and perhaps it'll be helpful to somebody. But I want to talk a little bit about forgiveness, the path to redemption and forgiveness. And so, as I said yesterday, I think people all over the world, because it's not just Americans who feel this. And this is the problem of making sure that our anger, when you're angry, And the Bible says, be angry and sin not, let not the sun go down up on your wrath. Anger is a human emotion. We all experience it on some levels. Sometimes it's an unconscious thing. It's like your engine is running and it's on an idle that you cannot tell. When you really got a good vehicle, that's a mark of a good vehicle, when you don't know the engine is running. And you may be trying to start it again. Hello, thank you for joining us this evening. As I said, people all over the world experience the killing of George Floyd. And so it caused a really it's emotional for all of us. I think to even revisit the topic is super emotional. It's a hurtful situation. It's something that, but it's something that takes place all over the world because there is so much hatred. There is so much hatred, and um, how the answer for all of it. Certainly, we don't have an answer we have an answer on the individual level, and we believe that God, the love that Yeshua Christ manifested at the cross, is the answer, is the ultimate answer to all of our problems. Now, how do we get there? One person at a time, one individual at a time, experiencing God's love. So I want to talk to you about a portion of scripture in Luke chapter 7. Luke chapter 7, a certain Pharisee, a religious leader, invites Jesus, Yeshua, to his home for a meal. And hospitality in the East and that part of the world is really big. Hospitality should be big everywhere. I think if more people had meals together, sat down and looked at each other face to face, we would have less hatred and bitterness against one another. We would have less animosity. We would be able to forgive one another. Sometimes just a simple act of having a meal together. So Jesus had a meal at the man's home. He wanted him to come, and Jesus went to fellowship with him in his home. Good morning. Good morning. Happy to have you. If it is morning where you are, hello to you from Starkville, Mississippi. So Jesus had a meal at the man's home, and there was a woman who came in. And from the entire time that the woman came in, she was washing the feet of Jesus with her tears. She was crying on his feet and washing his feet with her tears and drying them with her hair. And the host, whose name was Simon, said to himself, or said within himself, now if Yeshua was really a prophet, then he would know what kind of woman. He would know that this woman is, she's not the cream of the crop. She's not the best citizen. She's not the most faithful. She's known as a loose woman. Now, so he was just thinking this, but in the process, the Lord, Yeshua, heard his thoughts. He heard his thoughts. He heard what the man was saying to himself. And we have to understand that the God that we have to do, he knows our thoughts. He knows the intents of our heart. If we're full of hate and bitterness, he knows that. And God can read, he knows where we're at. So all of us are somewhere. We're not where we want to be or where we need to be, but God knows where we're at. And I'm glad about that. So the Lord reads his thoughts, and he said that, look, Simon, I have something to ask you. And he gave him this scenario about forgiveness. He said, two men had a debt, right? The one had a debt, and was given of that debt. The other man had a greater debt and was forgiven. He said, in the end, which one of the two debtors loved the creditor most? And the man said, well, um, the man that had the greatest debt. And the Lord says to him, you've said correctly. And he went on to tell Simon, he said, Simon, when I came in, you did not give me water to wash my feet. You did not kiss me to welcome me to your home, which is the courtesy or the one of the courtesies that normally you extend to a guest in your home, an honored guest in your home. But this woman, since I have been here, she has washed my feet with her tears. She has kissed my feet and dried them with the locks of her hair. But you didn't give me water for my feet. You never kissed me to welcome me to your home. And so with this, he said to the woman, your sins be forgiven. Go and sin no more. So here's an act of reconciliation, an act of forgiveness that the Lord demonstrated himself. And when we consider that even from the cross of his agony, the cross of his suffering, one of his acts was to forgive them. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Now, no one who loves America. Now, I love America. I've served for 23 years, and before that, as a student, I loved America. I was taught by a little sweet little history teacher in the 6th grade named Mrs. Ellis. And one of the things she taught us about patriotism, why we love America. And she happened to be Caucasian. And if you grew up as I did and where I did, then you know that there was a separation line. White were here, blacks were here, and never or seldom did the twain meet. Okay. And so there were clear lines that you did not cross or were not crossed. But here's a sweet little lady who happens to be Caucasian, who's teaching me what it means to love and value America. Now, don't think that I just got it there, but prior to the 6th grade, prior to the 7th grade, this was the 7th grade, prior to the 7th grade, for the first 6 years of my life, we grew up with the national anthem in an all-black school. We grew up with the national anthem. We grew up with a sense of patriotism. We saluted the flag or pledge allegiance to the flag every single morning. We had prayer every morning. So don't think that I learned my values at an integrated school, but I learned my values at home in the first 6 years of my life at an all African American school, because the schools were not integrated at that time. Now, it's funny, as when I grew up, whenever we got new books, they were already written in. They were used books. I don't ever remember in the first 6 years of school ever having a new book, or ever seeing new books come into school. They said we're getting new books, and the books were already used by the Caucasian schools and passed on to our school. Now, do I have a reason to hate? I still was able to get some knowledge from the books. I was able to learn from those books. Nobody likes being mistreated. And it's wrong to hate anybody for any reason, let alone something they can't help. The color of their skin, the texture of their skin, whether they're male or female. You're hating somebody for something that they did not cause. If people ever realize that when you bleed the same color, Now, it's hard, and I know. As much as I've forgiven, much as I've reckoned with it and reasoned with it and wrestled with it in prayer and in my own personal life, it's a hard thing to let go of, to release those moments of a man's life being literally uh, pressed out of him, pushed out of him. And uh, and that's not to evoke any kind of hate, any kind of emotions. That's real. It's raw. It's what people have experienced for over a year now. We've wrestled with this. We've dealt with this. But there is a path, and I think yesterday, as I said, I think many people breathe a collective sigh of relief. And you need to understand that that's not just in America. No, this is not just an American thing. There are people who are all over the world who were outraged by what they saw. See, what happens is that a lot of times these things happen and there are no cameras. There have been a lot lately, these last few years, where cameras, even with cameras on, where justice has not been fully dealt. Okay. A lot of them off cameras. You think if a person does this kind of thing on camera, knowing that the cameras are running, if a person does this kind of thing in the open with the eyes of the world on him, what kind of things is he doing at home? Mrs. Chauvin, the former Mrs. Chauvin, um, filed for divorce, but not before writing a letter to the African American family of Mr. George Floyd, and through her lawyer, and apologizing and saying how sorry she was that it took place. I don't know if many of you know that, but that's an act, a noteworthy act for a person to say. And it rather suggests that she knew some things about Derek Chauvin that the rest of America didn't know. Okay. And again, we all have our issues. We all have our stuff. And the deal is, if we don't deal with our stuff, it'll deal with us. If we don't deal with our prejudices, if we don't deal with our pride, if we don't deal with our hate, it will deal with us. The problem is that when we hate, it comes out at the wrong time. It comes out against the wrong people. Okay. And I have no doubt that Mr. Chauvin's hate probably influenced his family. Certainly for her to go and file for divorce and to make it known, look, that our marriage is being dissolved. This is too many crosses to bear. Okay. And nobody should have to deal with your hate. If you're full of hate, nobody should have to live with that. You have to deal with that. You have to go to God and ask him, please forgive me for being so full of hate and rage. Why? Why are you like that? Mr. Derek, why are you like that? Why? What's going on? What happened? Did somebody drop you on you? What happened? What? Did somebody steal your lollipop? You know, that's, and I'm oversimplifying it, but I'm trying to inject a little bit of humor, a little bit of civility, but it's just crazy. But we're talking about redemption and forgiveness, the path to redemption and forgiveness. How do we get there? And see, the danger in not forgiving, a lot of people say, well, I'm justified in my hating because he did this to Mr. George Floyd. And what a lot of people in America may not understand, maybe across the world, that when this is not unique to Black people. We love each other, we love each other, we respect each other, and we feel a common connection, right? I don't know. And that may be true with other races. Maybe we need to have the discussion. Do we have a responsibility for each other? Do we feel for each other? And I would go as far as to say I don't just have that for Black people, but I have that for all people. If you're hurting, then I'm concerned about you. If I can do something to alleviate or to relieve your hurting, I'm certainly going to do that. And that's what the way it should be with all people. We should not have to think about what color you are to decide whether or not I'm going to help you. If you've fallen, I don't need to look at what color you are. Wonder uh, is very common now for when we look at news and some bad news happens, we look to see, well, what color were they? And really, what should matter is that they're human beings, right? What should matter is that they're human. But the danger and not forgiving, and here's the key, is that we sighed a great sigh of relief. And this is kind of a watershed a moment for America, really for the world, but more so, it's a mandate for America to make some changes. Okay, it's an opportunity for real heartfelt change. And if you're on the opposite side, if you've been waiting for this to happen and you're breathing for the first time in over a year, oh God, thank you. And you're rejoicing. I have a hard time really rejoicing because I know the reality of it for every George Floyd that we know about, how many others there are. How many who never got due process, how many who are locked away now who did not get due process, who are locked away for the rest of their lives. A few weeks ago in Mississippi, a man who had spent 22 years of his life in prison, he was freed. And a lot of people would think, well, the state gave him $500. He should be happy. No, he should not be happy with that. You've taken 22 years of my life for something I didn't do, and you give me a measly $500,000? That's sad. Hello, good morning to you. Good morning if you're joining. $500,000 for 22 years. You just shown me that the life of a Black man in Mississippi, the least you could have, the most you could have made in 22 years of your life if you were free was $500,000. That's sad. Another state, I would love, I hate that I can't remember the name of the state. $750,000 for 15 years of a Black man's life spent unjustly behind bars. $750,000. Are you telling me that $750,000 is all my life is worth? See, and that's why there's hate, because there's a different system of justice for those who have money, for those who have the backing, those who have the right skin tone. Okay, and we have to do something about this, folks, starting with our schools. I'm gonna say starting with the schools, start with the courts, start with the court rolls and go back and review some cases. It's sad that it takes a nonprofit organization, we pay billions of dollars in taxes as American people, and we don't have a justice system that is in favor of all of the people. Yeah, okay, so I hear you saying that this is the best thing, it's still the best thing. There's room for improvement, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of room for improvement, starting with the schools. You got to start dealing with biases. You got to start talking about, because we're different, you know, and it's easier, sadly, it's easier for some people to talk about, for telling me that something is different that's not different. Biologically, most people are male or female. I said most people. There are some people who are born uh, both sexes. You know, they have, you know, I don't have to go into these scientific details. I don't know enough to know, not smart enough to tell you all of that. But some people are born a little bit different. And I can understand one of them having, you know, being able to make a choice. Okay. But we're either male or female. And it's easier for America to embrace that a male who wants to be female, it's easier for America to support that than it is for you to get on board with fixing the racial difference. It's very obvious that I'm African American, that I'm Black. That's quite clear. But rather than shore up legislation with that, let me come up with something else to take the focus off, because I'm uncomfortable with the race issue. So let me pull this one out and say, okay, well, you're a male and you want to be female. So, you know, so that's and I'm not putting people down, those who may feel a certain way. If that's the way you want to be, that's who you are. But don't declare that my issue is any less important than that issue. And I've been Black for a long time. We've had the problems along racial lines for a very long time. And there's been time enough to fix it. There's been time enough to get people, to get the laws in place that I'm not looking for any favor, for any particular favor, unless it's from God. I want the favor of God in my life. I want his grace in my life. But I want to be treated fairly. And that's all people are looking for. They're looking to be treated fairly. Okay. Did you know that it's a totally different process? If a person who is Caucasian American want to research their history, they can probably go back 8 or 9. They can even break through that brick wall and get back to England or Scotland or wherever their ancestors may have come from. They can usually make the connection. But as an African American, my ancestors were taken from their homeland or sold from their homeland, sold into America, disenfranchised from their culture, from their people, from their tongue, from everything else. And if you're one of those people who are hating people because you think that African people were made to be subservient, or we're all in grass huts and naked in jungles and stuff, then you're quite confused about really what took place, about what Africa represents. Okay, the cradle of all life began in Africa. And one thing Mr. Clinton said that made a lot of sense and that resonated with me is that all of our great grandmother, you walk far enough, you're going to find a little naked couple in a garden in Africa. So we all have roots in Africa. Don't ever let anybody think you that because your skin is different from mine, that you're any better, or that I'm any better than you are because my skin is different. We all bleed red. Okay. All right, let me get out of this. We're talking about reconciliation, and forgiveness, a path to redemption. How do we get past this? How do we begin to move forward? Okay. A lot of people got a lot of ideas. Politicians usually involves more money being thrown at a problem. People talk reconciliations. That ship has probably sailed. Throwing money at a problem doesn't usually fix it. But we got to start with education. A Black History Month, the reason there's a Black History Month, which was a Black History Week, Negro History Week, and then Black History Month. Reason that was that because the contributions of Black Americans were not included in American history. Okay. And once that's done, you understand that I'm a part of history. That Washington, D.C., much of Washington, D.C., capital, Benjamin Banneker. Good morning. Good morning. Happy to have you in here. Thanks for joining us on HAPS. We're on HAPS TV, and if you're not joining us here, you need to join us over here. We'd be glad to have you. I'm Pastor Greg Mostella. If you're just coming in, I'm so grateful that you're joining today. We're talking about the path to reconciliation and forgiveness. Breathe again. Exhale. Relationships, overcoming the hate. Good morning to you. So happy to have you in here. Now, once you join us on the HAPS platform, join HAPS TV. Once you join, we'll be able to see who you are and identify you. I see it's Jeffrey, but I don't see your picture yet. It will eventually, if you have a picture or an emoji, it will place your emoji here. Appreciate you joining us. Again, I'm Pastor Greg Mostella, my wife, Pastor Michelle Mostella. We're usually here Tuesday through Thursday between 9 and 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we are spiritual relationship counselors, pastors, authors, Air Force veterans. And we're your go-to couple for all things relationship. As Americans, we have a relationship, and we have to stop dealing, stop making victims, and that's the problem of not forgiving. And I want to say to you today, who breathed a sigh of relief yesterday, but you still feel hate for your fellow man. Even Mr. Chauvin, if you feel hate for him, I feel pity for him because he's a human being and God loves him, then I have to love him too. Okay. And if I don't love him, I may not like him, but I gotta love him. And I do love him. And I want what's best for him. I want him, I want him to be saved. I want him to find redemption. And if it's in prison, so be it. I want him to find redemption. But the danger of not forgiving, and maybe something happened somewhere along in Mr. Chauvin's life that caused him to hate, that caused him to walk in unforgiveness. And when we don't forgive, Shirley, love you. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you so much. Good morning to you, Brother Al. Hope things are great on the West Coast. Much love to you all. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the high five award. Sister Shirley has been here on HAPS TV for a good while. She's she's our top commentator, as you can see. Glad to have you. But the danger of not forgiving too long is that you learn to hate. When you don't forgive, when you refuse or fail to forgive, what happens is that turns to hate. And when you hate anybody, you become its victim. Did you all get that? When you hate anybody for any reason, you become its victim. And Dr. Martin Luther King said that hate is too great a burden for anybody to bear. Okay. I'll leave with that quote. Hate is too great a burden for anybody to bear. When you are under a burden, it's difficult to breathe. Okay. Whether that burden is debt, absolutely. Shirley said it sucks away all of your energy. Absolutely. When you're bearing a burden, you'll find yourself off balance. Thank you for that comment. Thank you for this needed. You find yourself off balance. You're unable to get up, and that's what Mr. George Floyd suffered through, the hate of one person. Now, I think, listen, there are moments in every situation like this. We call them watershed moments where there's an opportunity to change. There's an opportunity for change. And I think along the path of this thing, there are stopping points. There were points where maybe had Mr. Chauvin had some Sunday school lessons. I'm not saying that's the answer to, I believe that those are answers to everything. Jesus is the answer, right? But had he had some Sunday school lessons that told him it's wrong to hate, that you can't hate people because of the color of their skin, you treat everybody the way you want to be treated. Shirley said that you use more energy when you hate than when you show love. Absolutely, absolutely. It's so much more rewarding. Truth, spot on. But there were points along the way when this could have stopped. Had maybe one of his partners. I know that there's a lead cop, that there's an unspoken laws and rules among forces, police forces. Having been one, I know. Although military, there are unspoken things that you don't say and you don't do. You don't snitch on your own. There are things that you don't do. The blue code, absolutely. And there are books on that. Our good friend wrote one, Pastor Clarence Hines wrote a book. Look up his book. It may not, it's the blue, it may be the blue code or the code of blue. But it's available on Amazon. Check it out. He's a dynamic pastor, great law enforcement officer. He's now retired, but he now teaches new young law enforcement officers. Dynamic young man, and I believe he's going even greater places. But I'll list his book after the broadcast in the broadcast so that you can get it. Would love for you to see what he has to say. I think he'll give you a lot of insight and a lot of help. But there's a blue code that says you don't do this, you don't, if the person is in lead, you let them lead. But I think had one of those officers looked saying, Derek, you're too close, let me step in. Let me, and had he went in and taken control, one of the offers suggests, look, should we turn him over? No, turn the man over. Said, look, go have a Snickers, I don't care what you have a smoke break, have a Coke break, but this is not going to end well. And there's a point of no return where the man is calling for his mother. Anywhere along that point, the man could have stopped. George Floyd would still be here. Okay. Now, there are just so many thoughts. There's so much energy behind this. And I know there's still an underlying energy. And I think that's why I felt this so strongly. Even though we breathe, people across the world breathe a sigh of relief yesterday. Okay. I don't agree with lawlessness on any side, whether it's in blue or not. Rioting and, protesting, yes. You have a protected right to protest. If you don't like the way something works, and vote. Did I say it? Vote. Maintain your right to vote. It's easy to get that right taken from you. And so you only have to mess up one time to lose that right to vote. So young people, you have a say in your future. Let's fix it. You're the key to fixing this. And if we realize that, we would begin to empower you and give you the information that you need to fix some of these things. So the danger of living without forgiveness for too long is that you begin to hate. And then hate becomes your master. Shirley agrees. Use your voice and vote. You have the right to petition your government, petition your leaders. And if you're not doing that, then you're not doing everything. And too many of us say, well, it's not going to make a difference. It's not going to change anything. How do you know? Give it a try. Step up. Begin to use what you do have to make a difference. So hate does manifest itself in the wrong time and the wrong manner, and very often against the wrong people. So the only way that you make sure that you're not walking in hate is to make sure that you have a heart of love. How do I get that? How do I get that? How do I begin to experience that? That encounter with the man Simon and Jesus, Yeshua, he said that two men owed a debt. One a smaller debt and was forgiven that debt, the other greater debt and was forgiven the greater debt. So which of the men loved the most? Simon, the Lord's host in his home, said the man who, well, duh, the man who owed the most, probably loved him the most. And the Lord says, you have said correctly. He said, since I came here, Simon, I came to your home and you did not kiss me and welcome me to your home at the door. But this woman has kissed my feet repeatedly. She has washed them with her tears and dried them with her hair. And she has just sobbed, cried over me, made a fuss over me the whole time I was here. You haven't given me water to wash my feet, and you haven't washed my feet, which is a custom in the homes at that time. To kiss your guests, welcome to your home, really make them feel special, wash their feet, give them, allow them to get a little bit of the dirt off of the road off of them. But you haven't done either of that for me. But she has continually wept over me and made a fuss over me. Who do you think loves me most? So, yeah. Shirley said, I learned earlier in life, forgiveness aids in your healing, not the other person. Absolutely. See, and that's the key. When you are walking around with hate, you're carrying the burden. You are carrying the burden. Something. A burden you decided to take on, right? So it's you that's hurting. Forgiveness releases you. Yeah. When you're holding somebody down, they can't go anywhere, but guess where? Guess what? You're not going anywhere either. George Floyd, he's not going anywhere. But guess what? Derek Chauvin refused to get up, and he's not going anywhere. Hell without bond. And while we, again, a lot of people, you can rejoice, you can be happy about that. I find no satisfaction in it until we fix the whole system that allowed that to happen. Starting in schools, starting at homes. We need parents to begin to teach about these kinds of things. And I think a lot of times, if I'm not touched by an issue, then I don't feel any need to trouble my kids with that. I'm not going to burden them with that. But guess what? Somebody's going to influence them. Maybe it's a school chum who knows what hate is and who's experiencing hate at home. Maybe they're going to influence them. If you do not influence your children for good, the world will. The world will have no problem. Maybe the police force, somebody on the police force will win them over. Maybe it's a drug dealer that will win them over. You have to start it at home. Then the schools. You have to be inclusive of all America. Teachers have a great example to set. All of the students are important. The ones who have money, ones who don't have money, red, yellow, black, and white, they are precious in his sight. Okay. Courts, police force, unforgiveness. I can't breathe. That's the point. That's to my point. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So, and then the police forces. You know, we unfortunately, a lot of the people who are in a position to become policemen and women, they have been turned off by what they've seen over the last few years. And again, in fact, they go into that police force and there's this code. There are these codes that tell me that I can't do the right thing. Here, I don't know how many years later, but in the news last week, a young lady who went against one of her superiors in Buffalo, New York. She was fired from the police force many years ago, fired from the police force because she went against her superior who was putting too much force on somebody. She never received her pension, and the city of Buffalo reversed the decision and gave her her pension. So, you know, justice delayed is justice denied. There are too many people who are behind bars, questionable charges, sad excuses for lawyers, overworked public defenders who have just been, their only job was to sign off on the length of the sentence. That's all they did. And that's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, that's still happening as we live and breathe. Too many of our young folks are being carted off without due representation, without due process. Due process is long overdue. We have to do something. Police forces, then police forces and jails. Jails have become a place where gangs thrive. Prisons overcrowded. You know, Mississippi. You know, I live in Mississippi. I love Mississippi, but you got to do something. You got to do something. Anytime people are in inhuman conditions, they become more inhuman. And lawmakers who sit back and say, well, they don't deserve, they didn't go to jail to be treated. They're still human beings. Change is overdue, long overdue. They're human beings. The hope is that one day they can learn from what took place and go out to become a good citizen. I'm not saying that they deserve to be treated, you know, given big screen TVs and, you know, don't be paid to stay in jail and prison for the rest of their life. But the plan is to give them some sort of plan of redemption. Give them a chance. Don't put somebody in, quit sending 22-year-olds to the same prison as hardened 3-time offenders and killers and gang for a simple drug crime. You know, just some stuff that don't pass the dumb test. All right, look, I've been in here much too long. I love you all and I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your comments. This has really made my day. I feel better having said something. Let's work on forgiveness. so we can all breathe again. Again, if I am walking in unforgiveness, I'm carrying a burden that's not allowing me to breathe. But when I release it, when I release it in love and say, I no longer hate you, I no longer hold this against you, we're walking in the love of God. God, God did that. He said, forgive them. He's trying to catch his breath on the cross, hung up between two thieves, and in his dying breath, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Thank you, Shirley. I love you for that. I love you all. Look, I appreciate you all. Have a wonderful day, okay? And we'll be back in tonight between 9 and 9:30. Join us then. Again, we are over on HAPS TV, Pastor Greg Mostella, and we love you all. Thank you. Excellent point. Jesus said it, that if you don't forgive men their sin, neither can yours be forgiven. Okay. Forgive our debts as we forgive our debtors. So it's a two-way street. And it's only when we give it out that we can receive it fully. Thank you all for joining us again. I'm Pastor Greg Mostella. We're spiritual relationship counselors. We're pastors. We're Air Force veterans. We're authors and your go-to couple for all things relationship. I'm one half of hashtag GD and me. And I love you all, and we'll see you later tonight. Have an awesome day. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.